Hi, boys and girls. You should be watching this on Tuesday, November 17th. We are reading our new story from our Reading Street book. And I wanted to do the video with you because I won't see you until 1:45. So I hope you're watching this video before you do your reading comprehension questions. And let's get started and talk about our story this week. Okay? So let's sit and think about what holiday is coming up next week. What holiday is coming up next week? I hope you're all thinking Thanksgiving because it is one of my favorites, okay? And what do we all eat on Thanksgiving normally? You might not eat it, but it's a very, very common meal to eat on Thanksgiving. You got it, a turkey. So the story we're going to read this week is called A Turkey for Thanksgiving. Alrighty? So let's start with words to read. Let's start with words to read. Our first word is everybody. That means anyone who is there or anyone who's with you, including every single person or animal, that would be everybody. Our next word is sorry. That's what it means when you feel bad about something and you apologize. You say or you feel sorry. Our next word is promise. That's when you tell someone you're going to do something and you mean it. You really actually do it when you make a promise. Minute. I hope we all know what minute means because we've been doing it in calendar math since September. Okay, it's it's the minutes that go by on a clock in between the hour. Brought. That is the past tense word for bring. So you either bring something or you brought something. You did it already. Behind. So something can either be in front of you or behind you, in the back of you. And door. That's what we walk in and out of when we enter a building or a room. Okay? So those are the words that we'd like to read. Now remember, these are frequency words, and these are words that are difficult to sound out, but we really should kind of just know what the words are by sight. Okay? Now let's talk about our genre this week. Okay? Now let's not forget, genre means what kind of story are we reading? Okay? We've read realistic fiction stories, which means it didn't happen, but it could happen. We've read fantasy stories. We've read folk tales. Okay? And this week, it is an animal fantasy story. Okay? And that means the animal characters in an animal fantasy act like people. Read about Mr. Moose and how he finds a turkey for Thanksgiving. Okay? So, A Turkey for Thanksgiving. This is our author and our illustrator. So I really like the pictures of this story. Right? I really like the way that the illustrator made the photos. All right, let's get started. It was Thanksgiving morning. Mr. Moose helped Mrs. Moose set the Thanksgiving table. Sheep will sit here. He likes a chair that's straight up and down, Mr. Moose said. Rabbit here, Porcupine here, Mr. and Mrs. Goat here. He smiled at his wife. Isn't it nice to have friends to share Thanksgiving? Mrs. Moose set 2 paper pilgrims, one at each end of the table. She placed the paper turkey with its great fan of a tail between the candles and stood back. They look good, my dear, Mr. Moose said. Mrs. Moose sighed. Yes, but I wish we had a real turkey. Everyone always has a turkey for Thanksgiving. Everyone but us. Mr. Moose nuzzled Mrs. Moose's head. Well, that won't do. I will go this minute and find you a turkey for Thanksgiving. Mr. Moose put on his cap and went out. Mist wandered through the bare trees. The cold made his nose water. Rabbit poked his head from his rabbit hole. Mr. Moose, is it dinner time? Not quite yet. Mrs. Moose wants a turkey. I'm off to find one. Rabbit joined him in 3 quick hops. I'll come too. Moose's warm breath hung white in front of him. Snow crunched under his hooves and made little holes that Rabbit jumped over. "I see the goats," Rabbit said. Mr. Goat raised his head and spat out the tin can he was chewing. "Is it dinner time?" he called. "Not till I find a turkey," Mr. Moose said. "We saw one down by the river," Mrs. Goat told him, and Mr. Goat added, "A fat one." Boys and girls, when it says Moose's warm breath hung in front of him, have you ever been outside when it's really cold and you go like this? And there's a cloud of, like you can see your breath? That's what they mean when they say that. It says his warm breath hung white in front of him. So that's what they mean. So it must have been cold outside. The goats leaped down from their perch. "We'll show you." Sheep was farther up the hillside, looking round as a fur ball in his winter coat. "Is it dinner time?" he bellowed. "First I have to find a turkey," Mr. Moose bellowed back. "There's a turkey nest on the riverbank," Sheep called. "Wait for me." The earth smelled of ice and moss as they crunched along. Above them a crow hung, black as a puff of wood smoke. Porcupine was hiding in the underbrush. "It's you," he said, as he put his quills down. "We're off to get a turkey for Mrs. Moose," Mr. Moose explained. "Do you want to come too?" "I'm slow," Porcupine said. "Pick me up on your way back." "Who'd want to pick you up?" Sheep asked, and laughed his bleat of a laugh. "I'll wait," Porcupine